Capitol, we learned the Supreme Court says it will hear an appeal that could affect hundreds of charges stemming from the January 6th attacks, including those against former President Donald Trump. The justices plan to review a charge of obstruction of an official proceeding. The charge is connected to the disruption of Congress and the certification of the election. That's among 4 counts brought against Trump and special counsel Jack Smith's case. So this is separate from the court ruling on if Trump has immunity from the January 6th attacks. Right. It's a lot to understand for the non-legal mind.
Yes.
Exactly, because we've been talking about this a lot. This is a little different, so we want to bring in our 9 News legal expert, Whitney Traylor. So in this case, special counsel Jack Smith is directly asking the Supreme Court to decide if Trump is immune before they get into the trial. Is that normal? That seems like a little outside of the realm of how this would happen, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. And yes and no. It's normal, but it's not normal, but it's not necessarily that unusual. And so the heart of the case here, of course, they're prosecuting a former president for actions that he took while in office. And so that is really the issue of whether or not there's presidential immunity. And so they've started the case. It's scheduled to go to trial in March, but they've paused to go through this appeal to say, hey, Court of Appeals, is a former president immune in this case? Because now if the Supreme Court accepts writ, and here's the case, they can say, yeah, you can't prosecute a former president, and the case would be over. So in a way, it is judicially expedient to figure this out now. In another way, it is unusual because this is something where you go to trial and then you file the appeal. So it is unusual, but it makes sense. I think it creates more efficiency here.
It's a little bit of a gamble on both sides to some degree. And then today, the trial court said, okay, we're pausing all activity.
Yeah.
Is that because of this? They figure it's not even worth it?
Yeah, well, it's difficult
Until
to
this
say.
appeal?
Well, because what's happening is the Trump side, they want to delay this as long as possible, because if he is able to go through the election, get into office, then of course he has a lot more options as president if he's convicted, or if they try to do that or whatever. So the issue is the timing. And so right now everything's scheduled for March, the trial's scheduled for March. So that means all these pretrial dates are going to start kicking in basically in January. So the lower court said, look, while this appeal is pending, because Jack Smith filed appeal with the D.C. Circuit of Appeals and the Supreme Court, so if the Supreme Court doesn't accept it, he'll still get it before the D.C. Circuit. They're all presumably going to move quickly because they know that time is really of the essence. But everything being stayed at the trial court level is not unusual. But if the appeal courts take a while to rule on it, then that would definitely work in favor of Trump in delaying this March trial. Because already a March trial is aggressive. It's scheduled for March, but there's so many documents and really, really important issues, obviously.
And I wonder if something else that could affect it, the Supreme Court announced that it is going to hear the appeal of one of these defendants, someone who has been charged in January 6th.
Yeah.
What is that about?
So that's going to be interesting as well, because they already accepted writ on that case. So that means they're going to hear it and they're going to issue a ruling by June. And here, why that's significant is because that's one of the same charges, obstruction of an official proceeding. So whether or not, and there's legal issues that they're appealing, or whether or not that can go forward. So if the Supreme Court says, no, that can't go forward, then that could obviously impact former President Trump's case as well. So when that goes, if they accept the Trump writ, all of those things will be intertwined for sure.
And he has until December 20th, he and his team, to file something.
Yes.
So on which case? I don't even
that
know.
Is
so much.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That is on. So what they did was they set a schedule on the appeal to say, brief us on why this case should or should not be heard by the Supreme Court.
That's it.
So both sides are filing their briefs, and whether or not the court will hear it, I think the Supreme Court will actually accept writ, but even if they don't, you have this D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals that will issue a decision.
Okay, you're coming back.
That's a lot. I don't know that I got all of that.
You may need a whiteboard next time.
I love my whiteboards.
Okay.
And maybe 10 minutes. So producers.
Next
time we might just do that. Thank you, Whitney.
All right, sure.